Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is the Coffee with the Geek program. This is Andy. I have a really great guest with me today, and someone I actually know probably more than anyone I've interviewed before, so I'm going to try and hold back on some of my preconceived notions and try and do this interview uh, pretending I don't know a lot about your work. But Scott, thank you for being here this morning. You are going to be the keynote speaker at New York State's Digital Wave Conference. So you're going to make the trip from Tennessee up north to cold, snowy Buffalo. Hopefully by March things have cleared out a little bit. But for the people of Buffalo who may not know your work as well as I do, can you give us a kind of summary of your educational journey? Because you've really been at the forefront of a lot of new initiatives and just really great projects.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be here. It's always great to be in any room with you, whether it's virtual or otherwise. For those of you who don't know, Andy and I have worked together for years with the Virtual Environments Special Interest Group, now Professional Learning Network at ISTE, and collaborated in a number of ways. First having met in Second Life, so that's sort of an edgy bracket for the conversation. Well, let's see. I came to education at the age of 40. I'm just about to register for Medicare. So, seriously. And it's because I went to an interest inventory weekend in Louisville. I'd been in music and the food service industry as a bartender and restaurant manager for years, and was looking around for something more fitting, and after 3 days of testing, they looked at me and they said, "Duh, you're a teacher." So having dropped out of college the first attempt and done a whole bunch of traveling, which I won't bore you with, but moving around in different places and trying different careers, I went back to school at Peabody College at Vanderbilt and completed my degree in elementary education and creative writing and English. I was just very lucky to have some good mentors along the way, and landed a job with University Schools Nashville after an interim sub position in a public school fourth grade classroom, and taught third grade for 3 years, and then I was just such a geek. Oh, that's dramatic. That they pulled me into the technology lab. They were creating division-specific technology labs for the first time at this K-12 private school where I taught, University School of Nashville, and I served 11 years in that capacity, and then went to public sector. Dr. Keisha Ray, one of my dear friends with whom I've worked at Vanderbilt Center for Science Outreach, walked up to my wife at the ISTE conference party in Denver and looked her in the eye and said, "I'm going to steal your husband." If any of you know Keisha Ray, she's currently the president of the International Society for Technology and Education. And what she meant, and my wife knew this, was that she intended to hire me away from my sort of sinishore, really interesting, enjoyed job teaching kindergarten through fourth grade computer to the public sector to craft a virtual school for the what is the 42nd largest school district in the country, which doesn't mean much until you realize that there's 36,000 plus school districts in the nation. And I weighed the options and decided that I think I could do more good in this capacity. So the first year we were a program at Metro Nashville Public Schools because it was literally against the law to have a public or to have a virtual school in Tennessee. And behind the scenes, lobbyists and educators and the heads, the superintendents of the 8 largest school districts in Tennessee worked really hard to get that law changed. So we became a school in, I want to say, July of 2010 and served grades 9 through 12. Last year we picked up grades 7 through 8, which is great because I'm teaching now 7th grade world history and really enjoying it. Um, and that's kind of my journey so far. We recently were accredited by SACS, and very pleased to have been invited to actually serve on a SACS committee, heading up to Massachusetts in March to serve on a SACS committee as an external review panelist. So I think that speaks to how they were, how the Excel Ed or Advanced Ed folks were kind of impressed by what we put together. And I'm very proud of what we put together. So next week we are hosting our own very first, our own V-Teach conference, which is a regional conference for educators involved in online learning. So very excited about that, and been working very hard on the keynote for that, in which I'll participate. And the assistant superintendent for public education in Tennessee will be doing our opening remarks. So we've established a bench hold a presence here in Tennessee, and mainly what we need to do is sort of overcome previous conceptions about online learning, and that's what we're trying really hard to do.
That's a perfect segue into the kind of follow-up question I wanted to ask you about that, because I know that's an issue here as well. But the notion that online learning, I think there's kind of two big myths out there, and I think any technology has fears around it that I think sometimes get in the way of moving forward with technology. But I think with online learning, there's two kind of biggies, and one of them I know is a concern, especially in tough times with jobs and that sort of thing. There's I think a misconception that online teaching is going to be replacing teachers. In other words, you're going to have one teacher teaching 200 kids, 1,000 kids, you're going to need less teachers. And I think the other one is, from a student end, especially for K-12, is if they're online, it's one more way where kids are kind of disconnected with the world, and they're just going to be sitting at home on their computers and not interacting. So, can you talk maybe about those two, what I consider misconceptions of online learning?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the first fear, and I do realize that's an entrenched fear, is that online learning will be replacing teachers. The fact is that a teacher really cannot effectively handle a whole lot more teaching online than a teacher in a classroom. So, if you think of the number of students a classroom teacher teaches in the course of a day, or the number of students in the number of courses, it's really kind of a wash. I mean, we use adjunct teachers who are teaching full-time for maybe a little less than half of our adjunct teacher population, and we have 25 online teachers now. And the programs that have overpacked students to teacher and really outweighed a realistic teacher-student ratio have by and large failed. And I'm not going to name any names, but they've sort of paved the way in creating more obstacles for us by creating the perception that an online teacher can teach 1,500 kids. It's simply not the case. Our teachers teach typically 25 children in a section, and may carry, if they're doing it full-time, may carry 3 sections. So that's fewer students than a teacher would see in the course of a school day. So, do the math. We're not going to replace teachers. What we're going to do is enable teachers to teach in different ways. And the models that we've created, the model that we've created is really facilitator. We're an asynchronous program, very much like a college course, and students work their way through the material, turn in according to a pacing guide, so they have to stay on pace. They can work ahead but not behind at that pace. And one of the things we had to do early on was equate performance with attendance, because as a public school we have to report attendance. We're responsible for our students coming to school. Well, they don't come to school. So the way that we've done that is to create a pacing schedule, and as long as they're on that pace, they're attending school. And that means that they can sit down and do their 6 classes if they're full-time. Monday and Tuesday working all day, both days, and take the rest of the week off, or they can space it out over the course of the week. And our students do it all different ways. As far as students being connected, we have quite a few students. We have 150 or so full-time students. We have quite a few who come into our student center. Students who fall behind are required to come into our student center for intervention classes. The math courses and our state end of course classes, we have hybrid meetings once a week with the teacher in our school building in a classroom. So there are many different sort of ways that you can sort of scaffold support. And we also have social events. We have a prom, and our prom's a little different. It's open to every student in our grades 9 through 12. Student committee works it out, so they meet. We have a parent, teacher, student advisory board, which meets regularly. And the final thing that I'll say is that in our school, in our courses, our teachers must hold a telephone conversation or a Skype call or a Google Hangout today with their students about every couple, 3 weeks as they complete a module. We call it a discussion-based assessment. And we didn't make that one up. We borrowed it from Florida Virtual School, but it's a regular conversation with an individual student, and our teachers report that they know their kids better teaching online than they really knew their similar sets of kids in classrooms. I mean, because if you think about it, how often do you have an individual conversation with a student about a unit or a module in the classroom? Every single one required and documented, and look toward learning targets. And we use data with our kids, which means that our teachers have data conversations with our end of course kids, which is really pretty much every kid. So there's a lot of conversation. I like to say, you know, the biggest thing in us is this going the right direction? No, it needs to go this way. C. There's communication. You know, the big C is online learning does not work unless there's a lot of communication going on. So I've been ranting here. So
No, that's all really good food for thought. And I think thinking about how you and I met through Second Life, I think kind of exemplifies the point of you can have a really, I think, rich connection. I mean, we meet probably once a year, usually at the ISTE conference. Outside of that, we talk pretty much 3-4 times a month through meetings or other connections. And I think I probably know you better than I know my own brother. So I think that just maybe re-emphasizing your point, I think that that myth that students won't be connected, I think you're showing through your online system that they're actually connected in a lot of different ways. And one of the things, I just saw Young Zhao talk, and he talked about technology being able to offer individualized, you know, education plans for kids. You're doing that really here, and how powerful is that?
it works. I mean, I've really, this will be the first year that we'll graduate. Students have been with us since 9th grade. And, you know, I know those students well because most of them come in and visit, and many choose to come in and work in our sort of state-of-the-art student center during the 4 days that we're open for that during the week. And I get to know them, and it's been a joy.
Great. You've been an integral member of ISTE for years, and with Keisha being a friend and now president, I think you're even more in tune with ISTE. Can you tell us about your work with your 2 PLNs that you've worked with, namely Online Learning PLN and my favorite, Virtual Environments?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Actually, the first SIG, back then there were special interest groups. Now they're professional learning networks with sort of new names. But the first one that I worked with was working with Keisha and Jan Zanitas and a whole bunch of other sort of innovators to create the interactive video conferencing special interest group, SIG IVC. And that was using sort of high-end video codecs back before Skype and before Google Hangouts. You really had to have sort of a dedicated, in order to get any quality, a dedicated codec or a machine that was programmed with a camera on top of a television set or attached to a projector. And this group sort of pioneered all of that, and it's still established. They're still going strong. I don't spend much time with that group, but I cherish those relationships. And again, that's what this is all about, isn't it? Is creating relationships. Back in 2009, there was a Second Life SIG, or a Second Life playground going on at SD, and we wanted to create a special interest group, but didn't want it to be nailed down to Second Life. And that proved to be a really good thing, as we'll share, as we shared the other day. And so we banded together with Peggy Sheehy and Kevin Jarrett and a bunch of other people to sort of create a proposal for a virtual environments network, or SIG. And that was accepted, and we've been going strong since 2010. Holding playgrounds at the ISTE conferences to show people what this is all about, and promoting virtual environments in different ways, including a really great thing. You might type this into chat as the URL for Virtual Environments Journal, which is sort of a non-peer reviewed educational journal, sort of casual and formal, but there's some formally written papers in there as well. And it's all about, on a global scale, how virtual environments and virtual worlds, and what now I like to call 3D VLEs, 3D virtual learning environments, are changing the way a lot of education takes place. And you talk about individualization and personalization, boom. So the online learning network is the oldest. It was SIGTEL, telecommunications, at the beginning.
What's that?
Google that one, kids. In the beginning, and I was brought into that by Michael Gorman, who's the current president, and Keisha, again, who's a former president or chair of that professional learning network, and served this past year as vice president. And believe I'm going to have an announcement. Usually the vice president moves up to the president's position the following year, and I think at ISTE we're going to make a significant change. I just feel like I'd like some of the younger movers in the group to get more of a shot at leadership, real true leadership positions. And we've got in Michelle Eaton a really fantastic leader, innovator. And so I believe we're going to sort of move her up into that presidential position this year by proxy.
Nice. So if we take kind of your two groups that you're part of at ISTE, the online learning and virtual environments, do you see at one point where maybe those can merge, those at least concepts can merge, where online learning becomes kind of an avatar-based learning? I know you and I have both read Ready Player One. I think you've read Ready Player One.
I have.
But I think, do you think that's the wave of the future, and things with Oculus Rift and some of these kind of 3D viewers, do you think those two will eventually blend together, or is that just too far out?
I don't know. I think there's a place for specialization, and online learning actually is kind of, I mean, all of the professional learning networks we have could be under that umbrella. And so I think the 3D VLE people, which is my peeps and your peeps, and you know, all those beautiful people who are involved in that across the world, might kind of always need a specialization and a sort of a tighter knit professional learning network. I could be wrong, but we'll see. I mean, what, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there wasn't such a thing as a mouse. And we've come a long way in 20 years. So if you project 20 years from now at the sort of accelerated pace technology is moving, look at Windows HoloLens. Google that, kids. I could be working in that space up behind Andy's head in Minecraft. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's showing. It looks, just from its prototypes and the videos, like there's some just a kind of mind-blowing stuff going on there.
Yeah, my favorite in the video that if you Google Windows HoloLens, there's a video out there, and my favorite part is a whole spread of Minecraft out on the coffee table in the living room, and the person's manipulating it with finger and hand gestures. I look forward to that. I mean, there's so much to look forward to, and I really think one of the things we need to do as educators is model how much fun it can be to be a grown-up. And I think that impacts things like the Jason Project, the suicide prevention stuff. A very key role of educators is to model having fun being a grown-up. And if you're a teacher sitting in a classroom handing out worksheets and not enjoying your job, please find another job.
Or embrace technology.
Yeah.
And actually, Richard Byrne had mentioned this, and I thought it was a good suggestion. He said one of the best ways you can do to bring yourself, if you're a teacher, to the 21st century is just to start a blog. Just start there, because there's so many pieces you can bring into that, and it'll eventually lead you, I think, to some great places. And I think that's good advice.
That could have been my downfall, or maybe upfall. Ooh. I've been blogging for a decade, maybe, or more. My current blog is scottmerrick.net. Just type that. And I'm not blogging as regularly as I used to. I had a Second Life blog for a while, and I certainly used it in my classroom. I used Blogger to communicate on a regular basis, what we did every week in the technology lab. And that stands as an archive. Also, Andy, podcasts. I mean, this is what you're doing here. When I worked one day a week with the Vanderbilt Center for Science Outreach, I created and delivered a podcast weekly called Snacks for the Brain. And I said it like that in the podcast. Vanderbilt University Library has online all 84 episodes, and that's there. And it's interviews with working scientists. And again, sort of my undercurrent theme was how much fun it is to be a grown-up and to be a scientist. All of them express that. I mean, anytime you see a virus covered in the news, you'll see William Schaffner, and he was one of my interviewees at Vanderbilt Medical Center.
Amazing. Well, that's a good place to kind of transition into this question. What are your educational influences and inspirations? Either who or what are those?
Yeah, I think early on, I mean, I had some good high school teachers who encouraged me to write. Albert Gaines and Ms. Arfkin and Thigpens, and those people, my English teachers were my main influences in high school. But then once I got into, when I went back to college, I was lucky enough to take a semester course with Philip Levine, who's a former poet laureate who's in residence at Vanderbilt that semester. And believe me, it was a brutal poetry writing class. And Mark Jarman there was a big influence. And so I got to the professional realm and started attending these conferences. And one of my first people that I latched onto was David Warlick. His message was early and prophetic and engaging and calling for change in the way classrooms are delivered. And lo and behold, it's kind of here. We're sort of right on the my school district has made a commitment never to buy another student desk. Classrooms will be tables. They can be moved around, modular. And I heard my assistant superintendent at the time, speak to a group of high school principals and tell them, if next year, if 3 years from now, we walk into your classroom and you're delivering a lecture to students sitting in rows, you'd better have a backup job.
Wow. All right. Well, I don't want to give up too much of your presentation. We're looking forward to it here. We're looking forward to hearing your perspectives. You're obviously doing some things far-reaching, so it'll be a great message here in New York.
Well, one of the things I'm going to do too is really go into some detail about how things work and what we've put together, because I think part of the fear is that it can be an overwhelming task from the outside. And it was when I first got to it. But in my presentation, I hope to give you some real detail about how what we put together is there for continuous improvement and how we've learned from our mistakes.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Are you ready for the Speed Geek questions?
I've got Speed Geek.
This is the Decide Now app.
I have some more coffee for that.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, you better get ready. So you get 3 of them, and I spun the dial, and here it's spinning around. And Star Wars or Star Trek?
Yes.
All right. Well played. Well played indeed. So our second one is another tough one: Minecraft or World of Warcraft, or any favorite game you have.
Well, I have to say, for me, it's been World of Warcraft lately. I've denied my colleagues for years as they encouraged me to get in World of Warcraft, and my Warrior Blood Elf just leveled up to 90 and is sort of stuck at that level for a while until I shell out the money for the new upgrade.
Awesome. All right, and your final question. Let's see if we can make it a good one here. Oh, Mac, PC, or Chromebook?
For me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. 2/3 yes. I don't have a Chromebook. I like what they promise with sort of the instant startup, but Windows is kind of getting there too. I'm really looking forward to Windows 10. If you look at the videos for that platform, the thrust is to make it sort of work and behave the same and very facile across all platforms, including mobile devices.
Yeah.
But I love my Mac.
You've brought up Microsoft a couple times, and I do think that they're getting really back into the game, and certainly the stuff Google's doing is really trend-setting as well. So, all right, well, that's our interview for today. Thank you for taking your time on a Saturday morning, and I hope you had a good cup of coffee. And we'll see you in March, a few weeks, sneaking up fast. So, looking forward to your presentation. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Andy. Enjoy your Saturday. Mine's pouring down rain on the ice.
We've still got lots of snow and cold weather, but it's all right. It's Western New York.
Yeah, brother.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
See ya.